Have been indicted on what Homeland Security agents call one of the largest drug operations in the 5 boroughs.
Several locations in New York City and New Jersey. Chopper 2 shows
52 tons of methamphetamine, a $2 billion trafficking network, and a trucking company that moved poison hidden beneath America's food supply for 7 years. This is the story of how a routine traffic stop exposed the most sophisticated drug corridor ever built inside the U.S. logistics system. 2:17 p.m. along a highway in Texas. A dusty stretch outside San Antonio, a high-risk traffic checkpoint run by U.S. agents, was about to expose a network that had operated in plain sight for nearly a decade. Want to know the whole truth? Press like now, and I'll show you everything. As part of routine end-of-year patrol operations on Texas highways, officers signaled a large refrigerated semi-truck to pull over for a standard commercial inspection. At first glance, nothing seemed out of place. The truck belonged to Atlas National Logistics, a nationally recognized company ranked in the top 2% of logistics carriers in the country, fully certified by the Department of Transportation, holding tens of thousands of contracts with some of the largest retail chains in the United States. The driver handed over a valid commercial driver's license, along with a clean cargo manifest. 25 tons of fresh produce, tomatoes, and lettuce, en route to a Midwest distribution center. The paperwork was flawless, the commercial license valid. He had made this exact trip dozens of times before. By all visible measures, this was America's logistics system operating perfectly. The trailer maintained at 34 degrees Fahrenheit, precisely as required. But the K9 unit didn't care about paperwork. Type K9 if you believe dogs don't lie. The discovery changed everything. After the documents cleared, standard protocol called for a secondary inspection. The handler walked the dog once around the trailer. Suddenly, the dog sat down near the rear axle and refused to move. The officers exchanged glances. Something was wrong. They began unloading crates of produce. Nothing. They checked the walls. Still nothing. But dogs don't lie. A density scanner was brought in. The scan revealed an anomaly beneath the trailer floor, several inches thicker than standard construction. Tools were retrieved. Bolts were removed. Metal panels were pried open. Beneath the refrigerated floor, there was no insulation. Instead, officers uncovered 100 kilograms of pure methamphetamine, vacuum sealed, stacked with industrial precision, hidden inside a custom-built compartment. The estimated black market value would later exceed $8 million from a single truck. In that moment, a routine winter traffic stop ended, and a national security investigation began. Comment hidden. If you're starting to see how deep this system really was, the driver knew nothing. The officers did not rush. They had learned long ago that real discoveries are rarely announced with noise. After the crates of lettuce were moved aside, the drugs came into view. At that moment, the driver was handcuffed and escorted to the shoulder of the road. His hands were shaking, his voice cracked. He kept repeating the same sentence quietly, almost as if swearing it to himself. "I deliver lettuce. I've been running this route for 6 years." And 30 minutes later, inside the interrogation room, his statement did not change. He had driven for the company for 6 years. He had logged more than 620,000 miles without a single accident. He had passed every drug test, every inspection. "I don't touch the cargo," he kept repeating. "I just deliver." Federal agents compared his route data with shipping records. His stops were routine. His schedule matched hundreds of other drivers. There was nothing indicating criminal intent. Realizing that sent a chill through the room. This was not a smuggler hiding drugs in a truck. This was a truck designed to hide drugs from the driver himself. The compartment could only be accessed by removing specific cargo pallets in an exact sequence, a sequence no delivery driver would ever know. The floor was mounted on hydraulic supports calibrated to avoid triggering standard weight sensors. That meant only one thing. If this truck existed, there had to be others like it. Not one, not 10, possibly hundreds of such trucks moving every day across America's highways, carrying poison hidden beneath food meant for American families. What had been uncovered was not a crime. It was a system. Type system. If you understand, this wasn't one truck, it was infrastructure. The company was a fortress. As night fell, the focus was no longer on the truck. It was on the company. To understand how a drug cartel could hide 52 tons of methamphetamine in plain sight, you had to examine the fortress it built, Atlas National Logistics. This was not a shell company that existed only on paper. It was a real enterprise with annual profits, creating jobs for the public, operating for 15 years. It employed 500 drivers, maintained a massive parking and maintenance yard in Texas, and held legitimate contracts to transport fresh produce to Walmart, Costco, and Kroger. They were a pillar of the logistics industry, but behind that lawful operation was a dark secret. DEA intelligence units spent months uncovering the truth. They discovered that Atlas National had not been infiltrated by a cartel. It was owned by one. Their business model was both intelligent and terrifying. Approximately 150 trucks in the fleet were completely legitimate, but the remaining 100 trucks were designated as priority units. These vehicles were sent to a cartel-owned garage for modification. Mechanics installed hydraulic compartments beneath the trailer floors to conceal narcotics. As investigators dug deeper into the highway seizure, the situation grew even worse. More than 20 senior officials connected to traffic oversight, urban planning, and logistics regulation had intervened directly or indirectly to assist the company. There were no written bribes, no envelopes of cash, only pressure, phone calls, introductions. Doors quietly opened when they should have remained closed. This was not corruption in the old sense. This was protection. Comment protection. If you see how the system shielded criminals, the tunnel was discovered. They were protecting a warehouse complex that concealed a reinforced underground corridor stretching more than 1,400 feet, approximately 422 meters, running from the warehouse to an unregistered coastal access point. Not a drainage system, not storm control infrastructure, but a purpose-built tunnel large enough to move palletized cargo at industrial speed. The operation, generating hundreds of millions of dollars annually, was based in Corpus Christi, where a small logistics facility near the port was registered as a secondary cold storage site. Operating for 7 years, analysts estimate that 30 to 40 tons of narcotics could pass through this corridor each year without ever appearing in public ports. And it turned out that San Antonio was only the front door. Once agents understood that, the scale of the threat changed entirely. They were no longer pursuing a trucking company. They were confronting a permanent smuggling gateway buried beneath American soil, protected by silence, paperwork, and time. The agents understood that taking down a single truck would not stop them. The flow had to be destroyed before it reached the United States. Type gateway. If you believe this corridor had to be shut down, the operation went nationwide. At that moment, more than 400 federal agents from the FBI, DEA, and DHS were quietly mobilized at 2 critical locations, Corpus Christi and San Antonio. The tunnel fed the fleet fed the cities. At exactly 4 a.m., the signal was given. Across the United States, the roads were still dark, along interstate highways stretching through Texas, Arizona, Illinois, Georgia, New York, and 9 other states. Unmarked vehicles silently moved into position. Highway exits were sealed without sirens. Way stations that normally slept until dawn suddenly came alive with armed federal task forces. The first stop lasted less than 90 seconds. A refrigerated truck heading west believed it was facing a routine inspection. The driver stepped down, a cup of coffee still warm in his hand. By the time the truck came to a full stop, he was in handcuffs. Beneath crates of avocados, officers discovered 62 kilograms of methamphetamine, vacuum sealed and numbered like inventory. The scene repeated itself again and again. By 4:18 a.m., 27 trucks had been stopped. By 4:41 a.m., the number had risen to 53. By 5 a.m., federal command confirmed simultaneous seizures across 12 states. But the highways were only half the battlefield. In San Antonio, tactical teams breached the glass front headquarters that had passed inspections for 15 consecutive years. Doors shattered. Servers were pulled from racks while still warm. Executives who had worn tailored suits just the day before were forced face down onto the polished floors they believed made them untouchable. At the same time, another team moved south. Corpus Christi. Headlights cut through the darkness around a warehouse that was never meant to be discovered. As agents breached reinforced concrete, they reached the tunnel. sealed too late. Inside were abandoned forklifts, half-wrapped pallets. On one platform alone, investigators counted 1.3 tons of narcotics, stacked and ready for inland transport before sunrise. This was not chaos. It was precision. Comment precision. If you respect how federal agencies coordinated this takedown, the numbers were staggering. Within the first 2 hours, agents seized more than 9 tons of drugs, froze $112 million in accounts, and arrested over 180 suspects. Cartel communication networks collapsed as phones went dark and encrypted systems froze mid-transfer. By noon, the final numbers were staggering: 52 tons of methamphetamine, 1.7 million pills, a black market value exceeding $2 billion. The operation took 18 months to plan and 6 hours to execute. For years, this network had moved poison across America with clockwork precision, hidden in lettuce, buried beneath steel floors, protected by paperwork and silence. It believed it was faster than the government, smarter, and permanent. It was wrong. As the sun rose, trucks lined up under federal guard. Logos were stripped away. Drivers, some aware, many not, stood on the highway shoulder, realizing the company they trusted was a criminal empire. This was not a raid. It was a shutdown, a logistics machine built to feed addiction, dismantled piece by piece in a single morning. Type 52 tons if this scale shocks you. The servers revealed the truth. When the highways fell silent and the last truck was placed under federal guard, the battle did not end. It changed form. Inside the glass front headquarters in San Antonio, the air still smelled of shattered doors and overheated servers. Racks hummed faintly as technicians pulled hard drives one by one, tagging each with yellow evidence tape. What lay inside those machines, agents knew, would determine whether this operation was remembered as a seizure or as an exposure. Within the first 24 hours, investigators extracted more than 96 terabytes of internal data, logs, insurance filings, routing algorithms. At first glance, it looked like the paperwork of any successful American logistics company. Clean audits, on-time delivery metrics, safety awards proudly displayed in presentations sent to investors. But patterns began to emerge. Analysts noticed that 1,137 shipments spread over 7 years followed a routing logic that made no economic sense. Trucks took longer paths, fuel costs were higher, delivery times were deliberately inefficient. On paper, these routes lost money. In reality, they generated fortunes. By reconstructing invoices and insurance claims, agents discovered that these unprofitable routes were quietly compensated through inflated refrigeration repairs, phantom maintenance contracts, and consulting fees paid to firms that existed only as mailboxes. Each transaction was small, often under $48,000, carefully kept below automatic federal reporting thresholds. Individually, they looked harmless. Together, they formed a river. Over 7 years, that river moved more than $620 million, cleanly laundered through America's own supply chain paperwork. Comment laundered. If you see how they hid money inside compliance, the double lives were exposed. Then came the VIN numbers. A senior analyst froze the room when she projected the screen. The same truck identification numbers appeared in 2 separate federal databases, one tied to routine produce delivery, the other quietly linked to seized narcotic shipments from unrelated cases in different states. The trucks had double lives. One identity passed inspections, the other never officially existed. That discovery triggered an emergency expansion of the investigation. Subpoenas were issued overnight. By the end of the week, 47 bank accounts across 4 states were frozen. 19 corporate entities, transport firms, insurers, shell maintenance companies were reclassified as criminal co-conspirators. For the agents in the room, many of whom had spent decades chasing smugglers and street dealers, the realization was deeply unsettling. This was not money hidden in walls. This was money hidden in spreadsheets. The system had not evaded the law by force. It had embedded itself inside compliance. One veteran investigator, his voice low, summed it up simply. They didn't beat inspections, they became inspections. As the night wore on, another figure surfaced, one that left even seasoned agents silent. Using conservative estimates, Analysts concluded that the same financial structure could have supported the movement of over 52 tons of methamphetamine without triggering a single mandatory federal audit. The paperwork was not forged, it was perfect. Every signature was real. Every form was filed. Every rule was followed, just not in the way it was intended. Type perfect paperwork. If you understand how they weaponized compliance, the human cost was devastating. After the servers were seized and the money frozen, a different silence settled over the investigation. It was heavier, and it did not come from empty highways or darkened warehouses. It came from numbers that could not be ignored. While the public focused on the seizure totals, 52 tons of methamphetamine, 1.7 million pills, $2 billion in street value, federal analysts began asking a far more painful question. What had already passed through before this morning? Using shipping routes recovered from the servers, analysts overlaid 7 years of Atlas national delivery data with public health records, hospital admissions, overdose reports, emergency response logs. The results were devastating. Between 2017 and 2024, counties directly served by Atlas priority routes recorded over 430,000 meth-related overdoses. Of those, more than 112,000 were fatal. That was not a national average. That was a geographic fingerprint. In cities where Atlas trucks made weekly deliveries, meth overdose deaths rose 68% faster than in comparable regions. Rural towns, once spared, were hit hardest. Emergency rooms with 6 beds were suddenly treating 30 patients in a single night. Doctors described the same pattern again and again. Older users relapsing after decades sober. Teenagers overdosing on their first exposure. Grandparents raising grandchildren after entire households collapsed. This was not an epidemic that spread randomly. It followed roads. It followed schedules. It followed trucks. Comment 112,000 if you believe every death deserves to be remembered. The drivers were camouflage. Behind every spreadsheet was a human face. Investigators began calling in drivers, not as suspects, but as witnesses. Men and women in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. Veterans of the road, fathers, mothers, people who had spent their lives believing that honest work kept America moving. Most had no idea. One driver, aged 58, had logged 1.3 million miles over 2 decades. He had never failed an inspection, never been arrested. When shown photos of the hidden compartments, his hands trembled. "I carried food," he said quietly. "I fed families." Another driver recalled reporting irregular weight distribution 5 years earlier. "The truck felt wrong," he said. The complaint was logged. Within 48 hours, his report disappeared from the system. He was reassigned. No explanation was given. Investigators later confirmed at least 11 internal safety warnings had been quietly erased across multiple departments. None reached regulators. None triggered audits. The system did not silence whistleblowers with threats. It buried them with bureaucracy. Then came the most disturbing realization of all. The majority of drivers were not expendable labor. They were protective camouflage. Middle-aged, clean records, long employment histories. Exactly the kind of people law enforcement trusted without hesitation. The cartel did not hide drugs from drivers. It hid drugs behind them. And when those drivers retired or got sick or asked too many questions, they were replaced seamlessly. The routes continued. The shipments never stopped. Type camouflage. If you see how they weaponized trust, the aftermath brought change. The morning after the shutdown did not feel like victory. It felt like aftermath. As federal command centers began releasing preliminary figures, the immediate impact rippled outward with stunning speed. Within 72 hours, intelligence units tracking illicit markets reported something unprecedented. The street price of methamphetamine spiked by nearly 300% in several regions. In parts of the Midwest, a gram that once sold for $20 surged past $60 overnight. That kind of shock does not come from fear. It comes from absence. For the first time in years, supply had vanished faster than demand could adapt. Across 12 states, traffickers abandoned routes mid-transfer. Vehicles were dumped. Phones went dark. Encrypted messaging networks went silent halfway through transactions. Analysts later confirmed that more than 8,400 active distribution nodes abruptly stopped communicating within a single day. Panic had replaced precision, but the highways were only one part of the reckoning. In Washington, emergency hearings were convened behind closed doors. Senior officials from transportation, commerce, and public safety agencies were summoned with less than 24 hours' notice. What had once been considered an isolated criminal enterprise was now understood as something far more dangerous. This was not a failure of enforcement. It was a failure of oversight. Auditors revealed that Atlas National Logistics had passed every federal inspection for 15 consecutive years. Not once had it been flagged for irregularities serious enough to trigger a full review. The paperwork had been immaculate. The compliance scores were exemplary, too exemplary. Investigators testified that the very safeguards designed to protect the public had been exploited as camouflage. Automated systems trusted consistent performers. Human inspectors trusted familiar names. Over time, scrutiny faded, not because rules were broken, but because they were followed so perfectly that suspicion never arose. Comment: oversight. If you believe systems must be questioned, not just trusted, the lesson is permanent.